Hi everyone. Great to have you back. All right, so let's begin from where we stopped. Remember I mentioned in the last video, right? For those who probably skipped the last video, please you might need to go check this out, right? Please kindly go to the last video because we're actually looking at the concept of Spring Boot events. I showed you how to create generic events and the likes. All right, now you could do the exact same thing I just did here, right? Using the generic event. Please try it out. It's probably an assignment. Try it out. The way I actually did this was different from the way I actually showed up the starting event listener. But both are you can do it both ways. So for the generic event listener, you could also wire it in like this. Use an application listener, put in the generic events, right? Then you have the generic event here and you can log it and it will work the same way. I guarantee you it works the same way. All right. The reason why I had to follow this approach for the starting event listener is because the web context is yet to be initialized. So we cannot use the concept of using a bean, right? A bean and placing a component on it. It will not work because that's basically the first thing that happens when Spring is starting up. It fires that event. Hey, bro, I'm starting up. And that is what we saw in this part. All right. So the next one we'll be looking at is so having this in. I think I need to create let's call this publisher. I think I want to create this. Let's call this publisher so it doesn't mix up with what we're doing. All right, so we have the starting event listener, which is basically application starting event listener. Remember in the last video I showed you guys what this does. If you check this out and check the implementation, these are all the events that basically comes to play when Spring is starting up until it has started up. Okay. All right, so we are going to be exploring every one of them. We've looked at the first one, which is the application starting event. So the next one we're looking at, which is the next on the list. Remember I created a readme. Next on the list is the application environment. Application environment prepared event. So now the question we should be asking ourselves is, okay, the application starting event, right? What can we do with it? I think let's start from there. What can we do with it? And the whole idea behind it is that is where we have the initialization when an application is basically starting up. That is where we basically have it, right? Then the next step, which is the application prepared event. This guy basically adds up where we basically load our external config, all our properties, the reading and the modifying of our properties. That's where it comes to play. So what I'm going to do is in here, I'm just going to add users, right? I'm going to add users, and the users basically is when you're logging the setup. Hey, I'm starting up, then probably very early initialization, right? If there's a reason you want to use this is when you're starting up, before the application starts up at all. Initialization, this is where to come. Now so initialization. Okay, now for this part, the use cases you want to think about is when you're reading your configuration, your properties, right? You're reading your properties because it has to do with the environment. So when you're reading your properties, this is very key. And I also say when you're trying to know which profile is used. Profile, remember Spring has the concept of profile. If you want to maybe work on UAT, dev, production, this is also where it knows, right? It's also where it knows. All right, with this said, I think let's jump into the initialization. All right, the same thing also happens here. The web context is not yet started up. So that is also an issue, right? So which means we can't go the route of using a bean or a component. We have to do it the same way we did this guy. Okay, I'm just a bit lazy here. So let's just use this, right? So I'm just gonna call it environment prepared event listener. Environment prepared event listener, right? Prepared. I think the name is not spelled properly. Okay, environment prepared. Okay, prepared listener. All right, so you have to change this up. Application environment. Okay, this is it here. Application environment prepared listener. Parent is going to complain because we're supposed to have this here. All right, so that's basically it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this up to be application environment prepared listener on the way. I just probably bring in the timestamp. Okay, so the same way too, I just pick this up, go to this part, and just add this in. I just do this app dot add listeners. So this is listeners. I believe it's supposed to take more than one. Let's see. Yes, it's supposed to take more than one. Is there a listener? Let me check. It's a listener, so we can separate it. Add listener. Okay, they are listeners. Okay, so this takes more than one because listeners is supposed to take more than one. So add listeners. So I'm gonna do. So this has been added. I'm just gonna bring this way so that I can just place it with a comma. So we now have the new, which is environment startup listener. So this is basically it. So let's start this up also, and let's see how it plays out. And as you can see, it's one of the things that started before the contest comes up, and we can see the application event prepared listener on the way. All right, so that is basically clear. Now I've showed you guys what you have. So when you have a property, that is loading, right? So in here, so what can we do? So if we go back in here, let's see. So this is where the properties loaded, the environment and the likes. So what I can do, let's do the events to get environments. To get let's see. Okay, so let's get environments. That should give us get active profiles. Okay, so we can do this to get active profiles. Okay, saying it's an array, so let's do this. Remember I said it's going to load everything, the current environment that is basically loaded up. So let's see how it works. So I've changed that up, so let's see this. All right, so it's saying it's empty. I'm trying to load in something else. Let's see. I want to see if we can wire in any of the environment. That's what I'm trying to do. So environment, so let's check if there's something else we can explore. Okay, we have the environment. Then dots. Let's see if there's a property. Let's get property. Then let's get property. Dot get property. Get property. Then if it's not available, I'm just going to give it a default. So let's do Spring Profiles active. I think I like this. So let's do Spring Profile active. Then if it's not available, just give it a, I don't know. So just say I underscore don't underscore no. All right. So let's just do this. All right. So all right, so let's run this Spring Profiles active. So let's check this out. All right, I don't know because it has not yet loaded the properties. All right, I was trying to see if it has loaded the properties at this point. Apparently, it's still trying to read the properties. Apparently, that is not yet available. All right, so I'm so as not to get confusing, let's just probably just go back to our timestamp here. I'm just exploring the same way, right? So let's just leave it as a timestamp. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So the next one that basically comes in after this, after the application environment prepared event, is the application context. Application context initialize. So now that you're talking about bean and the likes, environment context, yeah. So that's what you have here, right? Now, what are the users? For this? Now, the users for this is you have context customization. You could probably customize your context, right? So you can customize your context here if you want to. Then if you want to add your bean to factory post processors. I wish I could immediately show you what the factory post processors are, but we'll probably explore that later on, right? But the whole idea is once an application is loaded up, I could probably determine how a bean, if a property should run or not, or probably when it runs, if it's true, do some extra things, right? We could probably do that. But however, we have the context already initialized. Okay, so let's see this work. So the same way too, I'm just gonna bring it. Let's just call it context. I'm just gonna call this. So I'm going to copy and paste this. Then I'll change the name. Yeah. So I'll call it. Okay, I wanted to do context Initialized. Context initialized event listener. All right. So, okay, this spell the name well. Context initialize. Let's see this. Context initialize. Okay, initialize. Okay, initialize event listener. All right, so I'm going to change this up so it'll be application context initialize events apparently to complain. And we have this. All right, so we have this event. So I could just probably just bring it here also. I'll just have this here. So we'll have this and I separate this so that's more readable. Then I check this out. Okay. All right. So the same way, right? The concept of the context initialized. Now the question with this is the context loaded? Yes, the context is loaded, but the bean is not loaded yet. The beans are not loaded, but the context loaded. So with this, we should be able to create a form of listener to basically handle this. So like I said, we can use this method and we can now use the other method because the bean have been initialized, right? In this case, right? So it has not loaded your external beans, but we have the things like your component and the likes already that defines that application is a bean already exist in the context. So we can basically just use that in. So I'm going to show you both method. So I'll come in here, new. All right, new. So I'm trying to show you both method. So let's run this. First off, you notice you did not find it here. So let's pick the name. Okay, yeah, let's just pick context initializer. I'll change the name because I use AA here. Okay, so let's find this. As you can see, application context initialize events on the way. So this is basically available now, right? You see where it's coming up because it came after this banner. So it means it has loaded the context, but however, the beans are not loaded up. All right. So this is one way to do this, and this works super fine, right? This works super fine. I remember I mentioned I want to show you two styles. So what I would do, let's bring this comma here because this comma will not be needed. So I'm going to comment this out. I'm just going to come here. Instead of doing this, I'm going to just comment it out because so you remember it is there. Then I comment this out. Okay. Now, instead of doing this, I'm only just going to copy this guy. I'm going to take this out. I'm just going to call it at Z components. Remember why I'm doing this? Yeah. Then we have our event listener. We have our at event listener. So this basically brings it up. I want to change this up to this to log this guy. I'm going to change the name. So I'm going to say on context initialized listener. All right, initialized listener. All right, so basically, so we have this. I believe this should basically work the same way. So we need to bring this here. All right, so we are basically listening on the application context listener. So if we were to run this, I expect this to work because the contests are basically have loaded up at this point in time, right? So let's check this out. So I'm going to look for the application context. Come back here. Yeah, I want to load this up. So let's check this. Application context. So let's see this. Right, what am I missing out? So on context listener, yeah, so this should be able to handle it, right? Let's see, what did I miss out here? Let's check application context event. Let's see this guy. All right, I'm curious to see this now. Okay, so let's check this out. Publishing is starting up and is prepared. Have been called. Okay, you see, application context is prepared and application context initializers have been called, but early bean definition are loaded. It's okay, so let's come back to this. All right, let's see. So we have the context initialize event listener. Then we are basically loading it our event listener, and this is not printing out. Let's see. So what this basically tells me is that it is not yet initialized. So it is not yet initialized. So the context is not yet initialized. Basically, okay, I think that's my bad. I think that is not yet initialized. So that's why we don't have it yet. That's why we don't have it yet. So I'm going to revert this implementation so as to follow this path. So the moment we have this, it means it has been initialized. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly revert all this. All right. Okay, so we have this, then we'll have to go back in here and bring this in. All right, so I think that's basically handles this part. So let's run it again. All right, so we have it actually running. So we've been able to basically look at that, right, to see it's running. Okay, so the next one is application prepared event. We still have a bunch of them, but guys, think about it. If you're going to go through everything, then it's going to take a pretty long time. All right. So what I'll do is I'll just initialize one more, then I'll leave it to you guys to initialize the rest. Right. I'm just going to list it out for you. Then you go out and just initialize the rest. Right. So that way we already have that concept in mind. But I'm going to explore each and every one of them. We'll go through the docs together to see at what point it is basically published, so that we know when to basically use it. All right, or basically I think what I would do, I'll pause this video, I would implement everything, I would have documented the use cases, then we can just talk about it. That way you guys can have full understanding. All right, I'll be back shortly. All right, thank you for waiting. So I've gone ahead to implement everything that is needed, right? So we've done everything that is needed. The application started, the application ready. So I think I missed two here. It should be application started, then application ready, then application ready. Okay, we should have application ready. Then finally we should have, all right, we should have the application field events. So this is for cleanup, basically for cleanup. Then the application ready in itself, we can basically just use it for maybe background jobs or the likes. Background jobs. All right, so let's look at it one after the other very quickly. So we stopped at, I think, the application prepared, if I'm not wrong, or context. So the next one is we have the context refresh event. So this is the context refresh event. So see context refresh event. So we have this. So just simple. Now everything is available. We have the context, or basically let's go back to the last place I think we stopped. So let's look at application prepared events. Application prepared events, we have the prepared events. The prepared event, basically we see that it has not initialized, so we had to basically wire it within this part here, and everything works. That's a prepared event, and we have that giving us what we need exactly. I went ahead to print the environment name to give us what we needed, and we're able to, if we actually run this, so I've run it already. So if you look at application prepared, you will find it in here. So this application prepared. Now next up, after application prepared, comes the context refresh. So if you look at the context refresh, so this is the context refresh, the same thing also. And if we check, if you look at it carefully, context refresh, you see the context refresh on the way, and we're able to log the ID, and the ID is EBS, right? So that also works. Then the next one is the web initialize event, which is the web initialize event. Let's see. Okay, web server initialize event. Now you can see now for the web server initialize event, what can we do with it? Apparently now we can get the ports, now we can get the bin names and the likes. So I ran this, and you can see we have the first definition name as I listed here, and we have this, and we also have the ports. So that is what we can do with it. So that's beautiful. So I can just run it again so that you guys can just have a feel, right? So that's basically what we have. So we have it here, the initialize event and the likes. Okay, so the next stop that basically followed is the application started event. So now the application is fully started, right? So I just added this listener. If you look for it, you see the application started listener. That's basically what works. Then application ready. So now when the application is ready, everything is loaded, the context is ready, everything you needed, everything you needed and not needed, everything you need is available. So you can then do some work, background jobs and the likes. I listed some examples in here, so you can find it once I check this into GitHub. for the application ready. You can background jobs, you can do that. Now finally, the application field event. Application field event does not come to play until an exception is thrown, right? So what I did in our publisher, our custom publisher, I just slept for 5 seconds and I threw a custom exception, right? Threw a custom exception. So that's what I did. So when you do that, you see there's an exception in here and you find the publisher coming up, right? So you find this basically, you find this listener coming as an application field event listener. That's the way I could basically simulate this. So I want to see our exceptions within this. I'm just going to comment this out. So now we've seen everything around events, Spring Boot events. So this is the full list of what happens, and I showed you. I didn't make this up. If we go back to it, I showed you guys this is the full list. How many are they? Basically, it's the full list. So if you check this out, we have this guy. I think because I brought in some extra details, he's trying to show me all this. So we have the details in here. I think it has it has basically bloated this up. So let me go back to this. Let's go back to this event, Spring Boot event. Yeah, Spring Boot event. So Spring Boot event, I meant to say. So you can see everything. So we've initialized all this, and you can see how it works on the go. So now you know all the events that starts up when Spring, all these events that are published when Spring basically starts up, and now you know what are the things you can do within it. I hope this basically helps you out. This said, I'll see you guys in the next video.